So, the upcoming House of the Dead 2 remake put out a demo on Steam recently. I was quite surprised they even bothered to do this because putting a demo out publicly is kind of a show of confidence. Confidence that seems entirely misplaced because, shocker, it's quite bad. I will now enumerate the many ways how. Now, I already made a video on the other channel back when the first remake came out about how bad it was and how annoyed I was about it, and I'm disappointed to report that they have learned basically nothing and seem to have made almost no effort to improve whatsoever. I don't even really have the anger in me about it because they so clearly don't actually care. These are low-effort shovelware plopped out with a recognizable name to make a quick buck. It's clearly working for them, but it is incredibly depressing to see one of the best railgun shooter franchises treated so poorly. So, to start with, obviously, it's painfully ugly. This is a habit carried over from the first remake. The UI is identical, it still looks extremely cheap and weirdly tacky for reasons I find difficult to articulate, but it just looks bad. It looks like one of those games remade in Unreal Engine, Nintendo hire this man kinda demos that you see on YouTube all the time, except this is actually made in Unity. Not that that matters, I'm not one of those people, I don't really care what engine the game is using, but the point is that the color palette has now become extremely dishwater brown compared to the original's subdued but distinctly more vibrant palette. The voice acting has also been completely redone, presumably because they were too cheap to actually license the original VO track, although in a rare instance of me having something nice to say, they did actually bother to relicense the original music for this game. You can select it from the options menu. They didn't bother to relicense the soundtrack for the first game, which was extremely cheap of them, but they do seem to have learned from that, ever so slightly. Unfortunately, when it comes to sound design, that's about where the good things stop. All of the sound effects for weapon firing and damage have been reused wholesale from the first remake, and they sounded kinda weird there, and they sound kinda weird here. I don't know what it is exactly, but it just doesn't have the same kind of impact that the original does. But sound and visuals are kinda small potatoes to the many ways in which these people manage to still somehow fuck up the way these games play, which is really weird because they're rail shooters, like it's one of the most basic kinds of games in existence. Enemies seem to somewhat more reliably die on cue when shot in the head in Remake 2 compared to the first remake, but as you will see here, the issue where zombies can have entire chunks of their body blown off and still somehow find a way to hit you with it is alive and well. This still just happens sometimes. I don't know how this has occurred in two separate games now, but here we are. The ragdolls are still more confusing to parse in the chaos than the fixed death animations of the original, and zombies still don't make a distinct noise when they are finally killed like they do in the original. Those aspects of the game have not been improved in the slightest, which is very depressing because it was a very easy place they could have got some improvement in, but they chose not to. The poor translation and inanity of the system text is alive and well, with stupid things like the loading screen tip telling you, if you can't defeat creatures, use your gun. I can't tell if this is meant to be funny. It's not. But maybe it's trying to be? A weird small change is this child civilian in the original has been replaced with an adult. Is this like a censorship thing or what? Okay, so it looks bad, it sounds bad, and it plays kinda bad. But surely it's still mostly the original game, just with a layer of funk over it. Well, not even that, because for some reason they've made massive sweeping changes to the one boss present in the demo in ways that indicate they just had no idea what they were doing with this kind of game. The first boss of House of the Dead 2 is a relatively simple fight where you need to shoot a bat flying around while a big suit of armor slowly approaches you, and if he gets up in your face, he'll rear up to hit you with an axe and deal damage. The point being, you need to hit a small, relatively quickly moving target with precision so you don't get attacked. And if you are successful in scoring a hit, you push the enemy backwards, granting you more space and thus more time to make your next shot. It's like a clock you can add time to with successive successful hits. In the remake, this aspect is almost completely absent. He will get in your face real fast and never go away. You can see here when I hit him, he takes a small step back, but it's almost immediately undone. In the original, you can see the bat moves much slower, and there's just more time, there's more intervals for you to find your shot to keep the attacker at bay. This is the first boss, it's not meant to be immediately breaking your balls, but the remake has made it way too hard for no reason. The first boss of the first remake is actually broken in pretty much the same way, so I'm kind of surprised they've managed to beef this in the exact same way twice in a row, but that's what you get when you deal with talentless hacks, I suppose. Your only real strategy in the remake is to just spam fire the spot above the armor's head so that you can immediately catch the bat as soon as it pops out from out behind him, because in the remake, as soon as he appears, he's back down again in like half a second. Sometimes it desyncs with the actual voice line, which is really bad. And you can see in the original, in this state when the boss is close to you and you're given your last chance to get a hit in, it's longer, there's more time to make it work. It might seem like I'm complaining that the remake is too difficult, but it's not really. It's still trivial to get through this part of the fight without taking any damage. You just have to spam fire the same location. It's more that the fundamental gimmick of the boss fight, of pushing the boss back to create space, no longer functions in this remake. And this is very basic. Like, if you can't get this right, I have no hope for the rest of the game. The second phase of the fight is also waylaid by bizarre edits to the behavior, with the bat now starting pretty much already in your face, and you need to immediately find the spot as it swoops around in like a figure 8 pattern, rather than starting relatively far away from the player, but rapidly coming at you. I don't know how these types of changes get made, or what the thought process is behind it. It's like if someone described to the development team how they remembered the fight being, and the development team tried to recreate it based on a bad description, and they were also bad at their jobs. They've managed to turn a boss fight about precision shooting into just a mash fest. And maybe this seems relatively minor to you, but it's not. This is the fundamental design of the video game. For some reason, when the first remake came out, nobody seemed to really care about the ways in which it also fundamentally misunderstood the original's design. I don't know what it is about arcade rail shooters not getting their due props for the smart ways in which they actually are constructed, because this is what it looks like when you don't know what you're doing with this. The word soulless gets thrown around entirely too much these days to describe anything someone doesn't like, but this right here, this is truly what a soulless game looks like. An ugly game rushed out as cheaply as possible, made by a team who clearly doesn't really care or have any passion for the original game which they're supposedly remaking. And I just wanted to vent about it because it frustrates me deeply that one of the tentpole light gun game franchises is being treated so poorly in the modern day. I know I'm practically advertising this farce by even making a video about it, but seriously, don't waste your time or your money on this thing. And if you're thinking, oh, it's just a demo, it'll get better between final release, no it won't. The first remake released in pretty much the exact same poor state. If you honestly think it's going to get better from now until then, I have a bridge I would like to sell you. If you want an example of just how lazy these things are put together, right now there's a bug with the demo where playing the game in any language other than English will drop the frame rate to single digits every time it tries to draw text to the screen, because apparently they didn't bother to test any character set other than English. It's especially bad with Japanese. Now, I'm sure that bug will be fixed before release. It'd be really tragic if it wasn't, but it paints a picture of the product as a whole, you know? I would at least like to thank Forever Entertainment for putting out a demo so I don't have to spend money to confirm my suspicions that yes, this is in fact more complete dreck pushed out at the lowest possible price for the lowest possible effort. In a sane world, we would get nice GOG packaged re-releases of the original PC ports which do exist and are fairly functional to this day, but instead we get this. Maybe I was too harsh on Silent Hill 2 Remake in retrospect. It can get much, much worse. Let's hope that after this particular kidney stone has been passed, that this franchise gets kicked out of the hands of these grifters, and it can go back to being dead, because frankly I would rather nothing than these atrocities. There, that was a good ramble. I feel slightly better now. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Ta-ta for now.